Hey guys, how's everybody today? It's been close to a month. I think the last time I did a Vinyl Finds video, the last video I did was Steve Carlson's 1000 subs contest. So I've got probably 3 to 4 weeks worth of finds here. Quite a lot actually. So I won't say a lot about each one, otherwise this video will be way too long. Okay, so the first one. Bjork's Greatest Hits. So you guys know that I'm a Sugar Cubes fan, and that's how I got into Bjork. Life's Too Good, their debut album, I showed on my five of my go-to albums. This is her greatest hits. I started collecting Bjork first on CD. My favorite album of hers is her first solo album called Debut. This was a good way to, I didn't want to get Bjork, all her albums on vinyl. I was thinking of getting Debut, the album that has Human Behavior, Big Time Sensuality, which are the main hits, Venus as a Boy. So I saw the price in this go down to under $30. This is a double LP. The unique thing about this particular greatest hits is it's the track listing, which includes 15 tracks, were all chosen by her fans. I think it was done somehow through her website where people voted and things like that. So I think that's a great way to do to come up with a track listing for that. I think it's missing one song that was actually a big hit for her, Oh So Quiet, which is kind of ironic that the fan base chose not to have that song on here, but otherwise I think if you're gonna only have one Bjork record on vinyl, you couldn't go wrong by getting this. Next, the 12-inch, My Bloody Valentine. This is the Glider EP. I think this is a promo copy if I'm not mistaken. This is not the actual cover of this Glider EP. It has one song, Soon, which is a song off of Loveless, which is still eluding me on vinyl, but hopefully it gets another reissue. So 4 tracks, Soon from Loveless, and then 3 other songs only available on this EP, which makes this well worth having for sure. I paid up a little bit for this, but again, it's My Bloody Valentine, so I'm willing to do that. Another EP, we have the Inspiral Carpets, the Cool as Fuck EP, 5 tracks, 4 tracks on side 1, and then side 2, a 15-minute track called Plane Crash. The only song that I was familiar with on here is the single Joe. The other tracks are excellent. Early Inspiral Carpets. Plane Crash is unlike any of their other songs, 15-minute epic, which is fantastic, great EP to have. I got that together with the My Bloody Valentine from Discogs. And then a favorite band of mine that I've shown many records, so this is to complete the collection, Catherine Wheel and their album Adam and Eve. This is probably my second or third favorite Catherine Wheel album. By this point, they weren't really shoegaze anymore. There's a heavy, I think, there's a somewhat of a Pink Floyd influence, I would say, on some of these tracks. You might know the singles Delicious and Broken Nose, and those are great tracks, but there are definitely more there are definitely other songs on here that I like more than those songs. Phantom of the American Mother, Future Boy, Thunderbird. This is an awesome album, easily a 9.5 out of 10 for me, but I'm a fan. This is the I guess the alternate cover. The original cover has the those blocks there for the entire album cover, so I don't know if they're trying to censor anything. If they were, they still missed some stuff, so whatever. And then a 90s classic, The Sundays, Reading, Writing, and Arithmetic. This has the big alternative hit, Here's Where the Story Ends. Harriet Wheeler, very distinctive vocals. People tend to sometimes think of the Sundays as sort of a one-hit wonder. And that might be true to a certain extent, but they were more than just that one song. This album is excellent. This is going for some big money now, or some decent money, either on Amazon as a used copy or on Discogs. I managed to get this used in very good condition. This is easily a VG Plus, both vinyl and sleeve, for about $40. So really, really happy. This is a fantastic album. The Happy Mondays, Bummed. The Happy Mondays, of course, part of that Manchester Baggy scene. This was their second album. This is really where I think they started to get some notoriety. It has a couple of big tracks for them. Wrote for Luck and also Lazyitis. This is the album prior to their breakthrough album, which was Pills, Thrills, and Bellyaches. But I've been wanting this on vinyl for a long time. I've had the CD for years, and finally got a brand new copy actually of this. It's on a label that I don't really know. Trying to see what it is here. I know it starts with a Z. So I got this from a Discogs seller who was selling this brand new from the Russian Federation. So it took a while to come shipping wise, but really, really happy. I'm happy with the pressing on this. So from one Happy Mondays to another, we have that was the album before Pills, Thrills, and Bellyaches. This is the album after Pills, Thrills, and Bellyaches, Yes Please. Is this album as good as the other two albums I've mentioned of theirs? No. Is it as bad as some people would lead you to believe? No. So this is a pretty good album. I was really heavily into the Happy Mondays back in the early 90s, and when this album came out I played it loads, so really happy to finally get this on vinyl. Stinkin' Thinkin' is probably the most well-known single from this album, and it definitely doesn't compare to Step On and Kinky Afro and some of those well-known Mondays tracks, but really, really happy to get this. And now to a Happy Mondays, I guess 12-inch single, Judge Fudge. This was the single. It's a 2-song single, including Judge Fudge on the A side and Tokoloshi Man on the B side. Rather lengthy tracks, 6+ minutes for Judge Fudge. This is the single that came out as a standalone non-album single after Pills, Thrills, and Bellyaches, but was not included on any Happy Mondays proper studio album. I think it's probably on some greatest hits and whatnot. So happy to get that. And another 12-inch single, this time the Stone Roses. You guys know I love the Stone Roses. The first album is my #1 album of all time. This is for the single Sally Cinnamon, and it's backed by 2 songs on the B side, All Across the Sands and Here It Comes. Sally Cinnamon is definitely the highlight of this, but the other tracks are fantastic. None of these tracks made it on to any Roses album. This came out prior to the debut album, so it's still a little bit, I don't know, it's not as polished, let's call it, as the first Stone Roses album, but they were really sort of beginning to hone their sound by this point. 3 tracks that I've only have on CD on some compilations, so really, really happy to get this on vinyl. So I've shown some shoegaze albums in the past. The band Lush, I don't have any of their records on vinyl. I only have them on CD. And this next album is from a band called Piroshka, I think is how you pronounce it. This is a new album from 2019. Piroshka, I believe, is I want to say a Polish word, but I can't remember exactly. But I believe Eastern European word, and I think it means something like Red Riding Hood or something along those lines. And I'm not really sure why this band took that name, other than the lead singer of this band, who is Mickey from the band, formerly from the band Lush, did have red hair back in the 90s. So I don't know if it's a reference to that. So this is sort of a super group of sorts that has Mickey from Lush, the drummer from Elastica, the bass player from Modern English, and the guitarist from the band Moose, who were also a shoegaze band back in the 90s. This is excellent. It's not as good as Lush, but certainly if you're a Lush fan, I think you would dig this. The album is called, I can't remember the name of the album, to be honest, Brickbat. So there you go. Check out KXP on YouTube. There's a live session with that band. And another, so that's one of my top albums of this year, 2019. Another top album for 2019, Royal Trucks, and their album White Stuff. And I think that's some white stuff that on a table or something or other. So Royal Trucks, I know of these guys, American band who had some success back in the 90s, and then they kind of broke up for a while there. And this is their, I guess, their reunion album. Two really main players in this band. And this kind of sounds sort of, it's a little ramshackle, but it has sort of that rock, groovy kind of rock feel. I want to say a little like MC5 in that vein. You know, some really nice guitar work. Some nice bass and drums, really establishing a really nice groove, but definitely in a rock vein for sure. So Royal Trucks White Stuff, I would recommend that. The next album I never owned before. I've owned albums by the band Japan with David Sylvian and crew. This is the album and band Rain Tree Crow. This, in essence, is Japan reformed in the late 80s. Same four members. I think there was some debate originally that they were going to call this Japan, but I think David Sylvian in the end, who really led the project, decided against that. It is sort of Japan sounding, definitely the later period Japan. This kind of sounds a little world music like, sort of like in that Peter Gabriel style to a certain degree, but if you are a fan of Japan or David Sylvian's solo work, highly recommend Rain Tree Crow. An 80s classic in my opinion, The Sound, In the Lion's Mouth. This is the band that was led by Adrian Borland, and this is probably their best album. I've owned this on CD for many years. A reference point for this is definitely, in my opinion, early U2, and we're talking maybe October Boy U2. A little bit more keyboards for the sound than U2 would have, but definitely the bass is very up front in the mix, sort of very Adam Clayton, early Adam Clayton-like. This is an excellent album, early 80s, post-punkish. If you're a fan of that, you have to get this if you don't already have it. Speaking of post-punk, another favorite band of mine, Echo and the Bunnymen. I believe Rob Walker showed this in a previous video. This took a while to come out here in North America. This is the Echo and the Bunnymen Peel Sessions, 79 to 83. So this is prime period Echo and the Bunnymen. If you read the story in the inner here, it talks about how the Bunnymen were huge favorites of John Peel, how they used these Peel sessions to basically demo new songs. So there's some songs on here that are quite well known Bunnymen songs that appeared on albums, but they appeared in early forms on this, and in some cases had different titles. which is kind of interesting. So there's a version of Ocean Rain, which is probably my favorite Echo and the Bunnymen song, that appears on here, that is at a very different pace, same melodies and that sort of thing, but definitely a different sounding vibe to that. So that's a good example of what's on this album. But double LP, you get let me see, 15, 21 tracks on here. If you're a Bunnymen fan, this is a must-have. I've shown a couple of reggae grails before for the band The Gladiators, and the first two albums are definitely grails for me. This is their fourth album, Sweet So Till. It's not as good as their first two, but still quite excellent roots reggae. Like I said, their fourth album, the big track for me, or my favorite track, is Red, Gold, and Green off of this. So I saw this for a decent price, made an offer on it, and it's in the collection now. And then a slew of Discogs records from one of my favorite sellers on Discogs. Some of these are kind of beat. We're talking sort of good plus, both on the vinyl and on the sleeve. But they're albums that were going for a low price, and I wanted to have them. So the first one, Marvin Gaye Live. This, I believe, is from it's a single live album, one record, and it's from the What's Going On tour. And then 3 albums by the Supremes. I couldn't turn these down. Some of these are pretty beat. Where Did Our Love Go? Some heavy ring wear on there, and the record is also a G+. Where Did Our Love Go? Baby Love are a couple of the big tracks on here. I've had those two on a comp of theirs, but wanted to get this for the other album tracks. So that's early 60s, mid 60s. The Supremes, A Go-Go. This album has a lot of covers of songs done on Motown by other Motown artists, but some originals done by the Supremes, done here for the first time. The most well-known song on here is You Can't Hurry Love, which of course is the cover of the Phil Collins track. And I think there's one more Supremes. Late 60s, I think 69. Love Child. You can see it's got more of that sort of late 60s look. Of course, the title track is the well-known song off here. So really, really pleased to get these 3 Supremes albums. Probably, arguably my favorite soul band. And then a couple of jazz records. My favorite jazz artist, Miles Davis. We have a cut corner copy of Miles Ahead. This is early Miles. This is with, I believe, the first collaboration with the Gil Evans Orchestra. So this is very accessible early jazz. The record plays great. The corner's a little bit cut, but otherwise probably a VG cover for the most part. And then a record that came out, I believe, in the mid-70s for Miles, but was actually recorded in the late 60s. So I think 68, 60, 67, 68, maybe this was recorded, and it didn't come out until, I think, 74. Water Babies. So this is still with the great quintet, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, Tony Williams. I believe Freddie Hubbard, Wayne Shorter might be on. Yeah, Wayne Shorter's definitely on this. Wayne Shorter actually writes composed many of these songs. There's only 5 tracks on here, but many of them are Wayne Shorter. Yeah, this is excellent, Miles. And then a live record that I've been looking to get for many years, I've had on CD, Phil Manzanera and Friends 801 Live. So obviously some notable people on here, mainly being Brian Eno. An excellent version of Tomorrow Never Knows on there, but from the Beatles. And then to end off, a band that I never owned anything except for a Greatest Hits CD before, but now I've got maybe 3 or 4 vinyl records. Guided by Voices. I think this is called Warp and Woof. One of 3 albums released in 2019 by Guided by Voices. So Robert Pollard, very prolific. Sometimes maybe lacking a little quality control, but I think this was the second of 3 releases released in 2019. Okay guys, a little over 20 minutes, a little bit of a long video for me, but had a lot to go through. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.